Hello, and welcome to session 6 in our life group series here in the book of Proverbs. We have been talking about living a life that is foolproof. The book of Proverbs lays out for us the options. Will we live a life after wisdom, or will we live a life of foolishness? Wisdom, will we live in the art and skill of godliness in our life, or will we allow foolishness to characterize our life? Ultimately, as we have been talking throughout this series, we look to Jesus as the true wisdom of God, the embodiment of this character of God in our life, so that we can come to him and understand that to live a life of wisdom after Jesus is different than any other in this world. But this study this week, coming off of our Sunday sermon, we talked about wisdom and its relationship to our possessions, to money, to the material things that are entrusted to our care. You know, our world is often built on consumerism and materialism. In fact, one of the lies that we believe from this world is that I am what I have. That my identity is wrapped up in the things that I'm able to accumulate. Have you ever been caught in that rat trap of going through the motions in order to keep up with the Joneses, in order to let the people down the block, as they look to you, know that you fit whatever certain area of affluence you desire and want? For others of us, perhaps we are on the other extreme where we've been struggling, and maybe this past year especially, we've been struggling in the area of finances and in the area of our personal resources, and we're asking, Lord, why am I going through such struggle, and how, Lord, can I continue to follow you when all I could think about are unpaid bills and medical bills and all the challenges before us? You know, the book of Proverbs has a lot to say about the power of the purse strings, about the power of our wallet and its ability in our life to either help us to draw close to the Lord, to prioritize in our heart the things that really matter, or to draw us farther away. And so we talked about on Sunday, and we'll explore a little bit as well in our group discussion time to come, various priorities that God sets out for us. But first I want to talk about a summary of the temptations that money could have for us, whether we have a lot or whether we don't have much at all. And Proverbs 30 verses 7-9 says this: "Two things I ask of you. Deny them not to me before I die. Remove far from me falsehood and lying." That's the first thing. And second, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is needful for me. Lest I be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God. That's Proverbs 30 verses 7-9. An interesting challenge there, isn't it? I think we all will agree. Remove falsehood and lying from me, whether it's me perpetrating it or others doing it against me. Easy. But the second, God, don't give me either riches or poverty. I mean, how many of us have prayed that prayer? Honestly, how many of us have actually prayed and said, Lord, I don't want riches? You know, we often think more is better. But notice what the writer here in Proverbs is saying to us, that anything that could be a gateway in our life towards us prioritizing anything outside of God, we are to pray against and avoid. The author here is saying that to have a lot and to forget God, it's not worth it. Or to have nothing and profane God and be angry towards God, that's not it either. But he says here, feed me with the food that is needful for me. In other words, Lord, give me the needs for this day. Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount talks about this in the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. God, I want to feast on you because I know you will meet the needs for this day. What does that do? When we trust God to meet our needs, we're prioritizing, first of all, our relationship with him. Think of the nation of Israel as they came out of bondage and slavery in Egypt. You know, the Exodus story, the deliverance from slavery, that became a key event that the nation of Israel looked to throughout their whole history. We see that throughout the whole of the Hebrew Scriptures. They constantly referring to that Exodus story and what that meant for them. But remember, as God delivered them so mightily, as God demonstrated himself so powerfully through his miracles and his very presence in their midst, very soon thereafter they start complaining. Very soon thereafter, they start not trusting God. And God even supplies for them bread for the day, the manna, and they're not satisfied. Remember, the manna would only last for a day. If you tried to hoard it, maggots would come in the night, and it would no longer be good for the next day. It was a reminder to them that every day they are to trust in God to meet our needs. You know, when we have a lot or a little of money, resources, we tend to believe the false lie that we are controlling our outcomes in life. That if I have a lot of resources, I can control things. I can meet those bills. I could pay for the things I want. But we know that those things are fleeting. Or if we don't have a lot and we're going through a tough season and we think, if I could just get this promotion, this raise, or if I could just pay off this one debt, then everything will be well. We are as well under this false illusion of control, thinking that if we control these things, we'll be all right. The proverb here, I think, reminds us that each of our days, we need to depend on God to meet our need, whether we have a lot or a little. And God calls us to trust him in that. So, viewing money and possessions, resources, the material things in this world, through the lens of going to and growing in our relationship with God is key for the follower of Jesus Christ. Do you view your resources this way? You know, later on, we talked about that main theme, and here's the big idea for this, that our perspective on money and possessions reveals the priorities of our heart, reveals the priority of our hearts before God. If you think having much is the answer or not enough is the answer, your priorities of our hearts are demonstrated and shown. In the Proverbs later on, and we'll talk about this in your groups later, it talks about it's better to fear the Lord. It's better to be a person of righteousness. It's better to be a person of integrity. It's better to be a person that is generous. We use that illustration of having a bountiful eye, of looking out at the needs of those around us and saying, how can I be generous? These are God's priorities. Does our heart reveal this? Does our heart demonstrate this? But one of the things that we as well discussed, a priority for God with our heart, is that of relationships. And Proverbs 15:17 says, better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a fattened ox and hatred with it. What does that mean? That it is better to not have a feast at the table and know that the people on the other side you're in right relationship with. You love them. Many of us can maybe think of even our own family dinner tables at night and how maybe everyone sits quiet. There's unconfessed sins that need to be brought to the table. There was perhaps outbursts of anger that have yet to been repented for. Or perhaps it's just years of taking each other for granted. The scriptures tell us it's better to eat just a dinner of herbs, just small pickings at the table, if love is there. Do you value relationships more than you value things? Our world tells us once again, I am what I have. But I believe God tells us we are, first of all, a child of God. And we get to then have relationship with other people and value that more than anything else. Do you value relationships like this? Then, as you know, several questions we went through. You know, when others prosper, how does that make you feel? Do you rejoice? Do you get jealous? I know certain people that to see other people do well makes them feel worse. I can never understand it. You know, to see other people prosper makes them feel jealous. Why? Because I am what I have. And if you have more than me, then does that mean you're more than me? When other people are in need, do we look to that as an opportunity to judge or an opportunity to come and help? Or how about for yourself, when you prosper, when God blesses you financially, do you see this as an opportunity to reevaluate the priorities in your life and say, God, how can I use these funds to bless and love and serve? How can I use them to encourage relationships? How can I use it to meet the needs? Or am I seeing a boost in my bank account as an opportunity to just buy things that I want? It's a priority of our heart check, isn't it? Our view on possessions and money reveals the priorities of our heart. And in those times when you're in need, and all of us go through those seasons, and those times where God seems to be challenging us, do you look at it as an opportunity to still grow in those things that cost nothing? To still grow in those things like integrity and righteousness and holiness and following after God? The scriptures in Proverbs talk so much about our money. The New Testament does as well. In fact, Jesus in his teachings talks much about it as well. It's an opportunity for us to steward well the things that God has placed in our care, to be people of integrity and righteousness, of love and faithfulness and sacrifice, to be generous in how we live, and to use these resources not for our own consumeristic tendencies, but for the blessing of others and for the furtherance of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Follow him faithfully like this. May the priorities of your heart be shaped after the things that truly matter, loving, serving, and following him.